This episode of the D-Lew Podcast is brought to you by Happy Wrap. You ever wanted to design your very own gift wrapping paper? Now is your chance to do so. Whether it's for the holiday season, weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, no matter what the occasion calls for, you can use Happy Wrap to wrap your gifts. As a matter of fact, you can even design notebooks, greeting cards, gift tags, and so much more. You can sign up today at happy.thedlewpodcast.com and use the promo code DLEW to get your 10% discount at checkout. Again, that's happy.thedlewpodcast.com and use promo code DLEW to get your 10% discount at checkout. By Simpler Hair Color. Hey guys, are you tired of using that drugstore hair dye brand that isn't getting the job done? If you want to use a great product to cover those grays, have no fear, Simpler Hair Color is here. No mixing, no dripping, no mess. It's super easy to use, whether you're a beginner or a pro. Go to simpler.thedlewpodcast.com and use promo code DLEW10 for your 10% discount at checkout. Again, that's simpler.thedlewpodcast.com and use my promo code DLEW10 for your 10% discount at checkout. And by WWE Shop with Fanatics. Get your favorite WWE Superstars merchandise and wear them proud with superstars like the OTC Roman Reigns, Rhea Ripley, the Second City Saint CM Punk, John Cena, Main Event Jey Uso, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, and so many more. Oh, by the way, they got some really cool championship belts in there as well. So go to wrestling.thedlewpodcast.com. Again, that's wrestling.thedlewpodcast.com so you can go to WWE Shop with Fanatics. This podcast is a Believe Network and Siete production. Welcome to another edition of the D-Lew Podcast, brought to you by Believe Network. I'm your host, Derrick T. Lewis, and I hope the week is treating you all wonderfully. You know, this weekend, you're going to see me do my ring announcer thing at ECWA's Super 8 tournament. This tournament's been happening since 1997, and there's been a who's who that's been in this tournament. Some of your faves has actually been on TV for professional wrestling, whether in WWE, TNA, AEW, and the list goes on and on. But this week, I actually have one of the participants in this tournament. I actually work with him at the world famous Monster Factory, where I also do my ring announcer thing. And his name is Wonderboy Brian Morris. So we're going to talk about early life, him being an athlete, his cousin actually being an Olympian. And then, of course, we talk about his journey in professional wrestling and this weekend's Super 8 tournament. And let's not wait any longer. My interview with Wonderboy Brian Morris starts right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman that I have right now, I've known a little over 5 years, through the world of professional wrestling, especially at the world famous Monster Factory. And this Saturday night in Morganville, New Jersey, ECWA Super 8 tournament, and he's going to be taking the part in. He's Wonderboy Brian Morris. Brian, thank you for joining me. How are you, man?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm excited for Saturday.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. I mean, for those that know or don't know, I am also the ring announcer for ECWA. So this will be the first time that I'm working with Brian outside of the Monster Factory umbrella. And I love, because Monster Factory is our home promotion. And I love when I get to work with my factory people outside of the factory and letting everybody know that we are the #1 wrestling school in the world. But part of this interview is going to be getting to know Brian, all that he's doing, what he's done, and the future. And then we're going to talk about the Super 8 tournament later on in the show. But I want to talk about the early stages of Brian, growing up in Fairhaven. Talk about life growing up in North Jersey.
Oh, wow. I mean, I was so lucky to be born into such a great family, and I was always supported by my entire family and my parents and my cousins in particular. My cousin right now he's actually an Olympian. So I always had some motivation to be successful in athletics, and I'd like to say I found that in professional wrestling.
My goodness, you got a cousin that's an Olympian.
That's right. Yeah, Charlie
Man,
Volker, who's a U.S. bobsledder.
that is incredible, man.
Yeah.
So again, when there's a level, You know what I mean? Obviously, you want to work up to that, and I hear you there. I hear you there. So, when did you become a fan of pro wrestling?
Oh man, I think it was at some point in middle school. I actually kind of did it backwards because I didn't see it on TV first. I saw it in a video game. I was over at a
Okay.
friend's house and my
Hmm.
friends had SmackDown vs. Raw 2007.
Okay.
And I just thought, what is this thing? And they would always play it. They would play the career mode. They would come to school and talk about it. And then one day I was home on a Friday night going through the channels and I saw the guys from the video game on TV on Friday Night SmackDown. And I was hooked from then on.
Yeah, man. I think The Undertaker was on the cover of that video game, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was. I think Batista was on there. I think Cena
Batista
was
and
on there.
Taker.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So, speaking of athletics, you succeeded as a basketball player and doing track and field at high school. So, talk about the success that you had in those two sports.
Man, I wish I had more success in basketball and track and field, if I'm being honest. I mean,
Hmm.
like we said at the start, I was always looking up to my family and my friends, particularly my cousin Charlie, who was, all state, all conference in football, and it kind of felt like, I was always striving to be like him.
Hmm.
So, basketball didn't really pan out after high school. Track and field didn't really pan out after high school. But I did consider myself an athlete all those 4 years. And then in college, I kind of went off the basketball experience playing and turned that into a successful broadcasting career as well. So although it didn't pan out after high school athletically, I'd like to say I took some things that I learned and used it in my career now.
Because I know you were calling some games for Elon University,
Mhm.
as far as commentating, and you got your bachelor's degree in journalism.
Yep.
Congratulations, you graduated in 2020. So, how were you able to bring your experiences from the athletic side to now calling games as you see it?
Well, I was the color commentator. I did a little bit of play-by-play in college, but mostly just the color commentator. So my job was to analyze the play that was going on in these basketball games. And having played in high school and just been a fan as well, I was able to do that with relative ease. It's really great to be able to just watch basketball games and to be able to learn from it.
Hmm.
And also just basically get paid to talk about it. We traveled with the team. I called over 100 games.
Wow.
Traveled to the West Coast. We were all over the East Coast. Went to a few conference tournaments. It was a really great experience. But yeah, the broadcasting side of it came pretty easy to me after having played and after having been such a fan for so long.
Well, that's awesome. And giving that perspective of, hey, I've done this before.
Yeah.
And if they're running a screen or here or there offensively, or what type of defense they're going to run, you're able to express that, through all of the broadcasts. That's awesome. So when was it that you decided to say, you know what, man, got my degree, sort of things. I'm going to train to become a professional wrestler. How did that come to be?
It was actually senior year before I graduated. I was in North Carolina and I realized that the broadcasting, I wasn't really in love with it anymore.
Hmm.
I was planning on doing that for, my career after college. I had, a whole path to stay down in North Carolina and to get hired and to follow in the footsteps of my broadcast partner, who is Taylor Durham, who's a legendary family in North Carolina basketball broadcasting and sports broadcasting in general.
For
I was
sure.
going to try to follow in his footsteps and a few of my classmates, and it just wasn't fulfilling me from
Right.
a career standpoint. And my
Right.
senior year, I just kind of looked up wrestling schools and how to try to get involved, and I found one 20 minutes from my apartment. And I sent this long email about, oh man, I always wanted to do this. And if I
Right.
don't do this now, I'm never going to do it probably. And the guy responded within, I think, the hour. And he was like, yeah, come to our show on Sunday. So I was there. I started training. And that's kind of how it started.
Wow. And of course that school was CWF Mid-Atlantic.
That's right.
So what was I guess how was that transition of being a fan? Now you're training for this thing. What were some of the things that shocked you? What were some of the things that made you say, okay, whoa, this is not what I thought? Because we all know when we see new people come in and they get a taste of
Oh yeah.
running the ropes and they're doing Hindu squats and you're taking bumps and all these other things, it's not for the weak. It's not for the weak. You know what I mean? There has to be something in you to withstand to all types of punishment. So talk about that for a second.
Oh man, I'd like to say I was probably one of the most prepared students on my first day in wrestling school because I was such a fan and I always listened to, these shoot interviews from people and they would always
Right.
talk about their first day and how their training was. And there was a few YouTube accounts at the time that really were geared toward new students in professional wrestling.
Okay.
And also, my at that point, my career in broadcasting, you had to be prepared for anything for these broadcasts. You had to do research on the teams and the players, and that's what I did for pro wrestling. I did research on the school. I did research on what a first day at professional wrestling training is like. So I went there, expecting to exert myself physically a lot, but nothing could ever prepare you for getting in the ring and hitting the ropes and taking your first bump. So I was
Right.
pretty prepared to be respectful and to kind of just shut up and listen and learn all that I could and give it my all physically. But nothing could have prepared me for taking my first bump or anything like that.
Yeah, like I said, we've seen Tough Enough, we've seen
Oh,
all of
yeah.
these shows, and it's a rude awakening as far as, oh, this is what it is. And
Right.
it's great to see how people progress like you have, in professional wrestling. So, did you work any shows in the Carolina area while you were training?
So it's funny, I was training to be a wrestler. I started in September of 20, I guess it was 2019,
Okay.
I think. Yeah, 2019. I didn't get a chance to perform as a wrestler until December of that year. And in between, I did broadcasting. I did the play-by-play for these wrestling shows. So CWF would run once or twice a month
Okay.
on Sundays. So I would be doing basketball broadcasts, and then I'd go there the next day. Our conference schedule in basketball was Thursday and Saturday. We'd do the games Thursday and Saturday. I'd come home, and the Sunday I would call the professional wrestling show in North Carolina as the
Right.
play-by-play guy. Um, we had a whole plan for me to debut from the broadcast table and to be, thrown into the ring, so to speak. And unfortunately, the promotion and the school went under at around Thanksgiving that year.
Oh,
So
wow.
all those plans were kind of just thrown to the
Mm.
side. I was really looking forward to doing their big Thanksgiving show, and the day before, I believe, it was canceled, and all these events were canceled, and I thought it was done, I thought it was over. And then thankfully the owner and the head coach there texted me that December. I actually had just finished a broadcast in High Point, North Carolina, and
Right.
he texted me and he's like, "We're doing one last show on December 28th and I got a spot in the battle royal for you. Are you in?" And I was like, absolutely. And he's like,
Right.
here's the catch. You're going to be under a mask and you're going to have to wear all denim and you're going to play this character that we've been building. And I was like, I don't care. Let's do it. So that
Right.
was my first experience being, I think it was, oh gosh, I can't remember the show. It was WrestleCade or something. That doesn't sound right, but it was in Gibsonville, North Carolina, I believe,
Okay.
and it was their last big show. So it was a pretty good house for my first show. And it was all a blur, but that's kind of how I got started.
Awesome. So of course, you graduate, in 2020 from college, but that's in the middle of the global pandemic.
Right.
You make your way back up to New Jersey and you find the Monster Factory. So
Yes.
how was the process of you're moving back home, obviously, be with your family and everything, but
Mhm.
then you find the Monster Factory. How did that happen?
So it's pretty funny how it happened because before I left for college, the Monster Factory was on my radar. Um,
Hmm.
I had done, wrestling school, New Jersey, and the Monster Factory is always the first one that comes up.
Right.
So I kind of knew about the Monster Factory. I had watched some of their shows. I'd never gone, to be at a show in person, but I kind of always had them in the back of my mind. So when it was clear that I had to move home and that this job prospects in North Carolina, this broadcasting career was not going to happen, um, I was kind of okay with it because I knew that I could train at probably the best school in the country, maybe the
Right.
world. That
Hmm.
was at the time, only an hour away from me where I was living in Jersey. The problem was just if it was going to reopen, when was the world going to reopen?
Right.
But it was always in the back of my mind that if I was going to go to Jersey, I'd have a place to train, and it happened to be the best one.
Wow. And then, of course, when you meet Danny Cage, the introduction, the whole deal, it was funny. I was just talking to Chris Desmond recently. He was saying like every time you hit up Dan, he says, show up.
Yep. Yep.
Like,
I was I did so at the time he was running this sale for lifetime membership. And I don't even know how much it was, but it was compared to other wrestling schools, it was, incredibly cheap. And um, there was a reduced rate for transfer students. So I sent Dan this email and I was like, technically I have 2.5 months of training. So I am a transfer student. He's like, cool, let's do it. So I paid the lifetime membership. And then I drove down for what I thought was going to be my first day of training, and I was too nervous to go in once I saw the place. So I
really?
drove about an hour and a half south, showed up to the Monster Factory, parked my car, and I was like, I can't do this. There's no way.
Really?
So I drove home. Probably later that week, I went down and I got the courage to go in. And at that time, we were all wearing masks and there was no contact. And it was
Right.
either promo day or it was Wrestle the Invisible Man day. So those were my first classes at the Monster Factory, listening to promos, doing my own promo, being scared to death, and then watching Goldie and Mimi and Max and others wrestle the Invisible Man, which I was thoroughly entertained by.
Wow. I mean, it was just a tough time, during the global pandemic. There was really nothing for me to do. So,
Right.
I knew he was taping some of the training sessions and things of that
Yep.
nature. And there was a lot of promos that I did see. And everybody had to sharpen their skills, which I think was the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Considering the state of the world at that time.
Absolutely. I
Right.
mean, there's
Okay.
so much you can do not getting in the ring and not,
Right.
wrestling with somebody. There's so much you can do, there's so much you can learn, and that was really an education in everything else that goes into pro wrestling.
So even in the early stages, once you were able to start getting in the ring, once the world opened up, you were starting to train. What was the differences, or what were the similarities between the CWF Mid Atlantic and the Monster Factory?
Great question. CWF was so Trevor Lee came from there. A guy named Roy
Okay.
Wilkins came from there.
Hmm.
And they, I'd go back and watch these shows that CWF would put on, and they were doing like hour-long Broadways, hour and a half. It was really focused on the technical wrestling, which is kind of funny because like North Carolina Southern style wrestling, very character driven.
Very
But that
100%.
place it taught a lot of the basics, taught a lot of the fundamentals and the technical side of pro wrestling. And then they just wanted you to get in shape as well. When I came to the Monster Factory, it was obviously a completely different story. The full weight room, the mats on the floor, the 18 by 18 ring. How big the facility is. That was a big difference. And then
Hmm.
the structure of the classes were also a big difference. Um, and no disrespect to anybody at CWF, it's where I started, but um, the hands-on coaching from Dan and Dan making sure that he kind of has his hand in everything, whether it's the show or training, and making sure he's overseeing all of it. That
Right.
was a big difference as well. And then, of course, you walk in and the wall to your left or right, depending on what door you come in, it's all
Yeah.
the alumni and it's WWE Hall of Famers and it's guys in TNA and AEW and all that stuff. So, I mean, no other school is going to have that.
Yeah, when I first went there as a fan, I want to say 2012 or 2013, and that was the first thing I had noticed was the pictures, and I'm just like, oh, because you figure growing up in Jersey, I'm a little older than you. I grew up watching Bam Bam Bigelow, you know what I
Right.
mean? And he made his debut in WWF in '87, and they made a huge deal about him. And hearing about training at the Monster Factory, so that was the first time I ever heard about the
Mm,
school, and they made a really big deal about him. And to see all the names on that poster, who's coming in out of those doors,
yeah.
the who's who in the world of professional wrestling, and I know someday that you're going to be on there as
Oh,
well.
thank you.
I appreciate it.
I
No
hope so.
problem, man. No problem. So talk about those early matches, you know what I mean? And when you were getting your feet wet and, getting going, what were some of those up and downs and just finding who you were as a character, as a performer?
Um, I always considered myself an athlete and athletic, so the
Hmm.
in-ring stuff came pretty easy to me.
Hmm.
Um, Nobody really knew my experience level, so the first practice match I had was with Marvelous, and we did like way too much. I was bumping around, I was giving him slams. He called like a jackhammer for the finish, and
Oh,
it's like
wow.
it's like my third week there, and people are like, "Who the hell is this?" So the in-ring stuff and the moves came pretty easy. The character and the connection with the audience was so scary and such a challenge. Um, the first few matches I had on shows, man, there was one day where I just went to a show and I was dressed in all black and I was going to be, security or run camera or whatever. And Missy was just like, "Hey, you want to get beat up on the pre-show?" And I was like, "Sure." So it was a segment with Gabby Ortiz, who was the girls' champion at the time, and
Right.
I guess her opponent didn't show up, so she was cutting a promo um, during the pre-show, and they sent me out to wrap her up to say, "Hey, we got to move on with the show. You're going over your time." And she flipped out, invited me into the ring, beat me up. It's funny that you had Chris Desmond on because he was the referee for that match. That match. So I got beat up by Gabby. The next month, I was in a battle royal in my security outfit, all black, like black pants, black collared shirt. And then I got eliminated by Mimi, and I thought this is my gimmick now. All the women are gonna beat me up, and it's gonna be great. But thankfully, that wasn't the plan for too long. Um, I think I had a match with Anthony Bennett on a
Mhm.
one of those. It wasn't TRL. It was Arena,
Factory Friday. Oh,
Monster Factory Arena.
Arena. That's
Yeah,
right. The Arena.
where we
Right,
were
right, right,
filming
right.
in a closed studio, I guess you could say. So I
Right.
had a match with Bennett. Uh, had a few matches with Travis, and then somehow I got to main event the Turkey Slam of 2021, I think it was.
The 5-on-5
Yeah,
tag.
5-on-5
Yeah.
match, and that was kind of like my first big moment at the Monster Factory, where it was like me and Homicide and Joker and Clara Carreras and Davey versus Golden Era. So Brett, Goldie, and Sean, Mimi, and who else was it? Somebody else, I think. But then Dan was on the outside for them, so that was
Yeah.
cool to
When
be in
Dan
the
when
ring with
Dan
those
went heel,
guys.
right.
Yep, yep,
Yeah, that was a crazy time where Dan decided to do the heel thing, to be the heel promoter type situation.
yeah.
And I think that Turkey Slam, Bobby Buffet had to do the gauntlet and defend the title in
He
Turkey
must have,
Slam.
yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. So you made a metamorphosis into this heel character, Wonderboy Brian Morris, and then ultimately you teamed up Nick Petit, originally Christian Rocco,
Hmm.
then later Chris Desmond, managed by the Emmy Award winning John Alba, and formed World Renowned.
Yeah.
And you guys, to me, were the main heels for the last 2.5 years. So talk about that transformation as a wrestler, as a character, and some of those things and some of those gems you learned from John Alba being around him.
Wow. I don't even know where to start with that. John was already so experienced in wrestling as, as a performer and a manager and then as a person in the media too.
Right.
Um, so the angle of him, taking us under his wing and teaching us, that was completely real,
Yeah.
it was him being very involved in our matches and our promos and sometimes doing the speaking for us and really knowing how to tell a great story on screen.
Hmm.
And not just with a microphone in the ring too. Um, so yeah, Christian, Nick, and myself, we were just kind of thrown together. He was there on that show, and oh gosh, I think we won the titles like right away, right? Won the tag
Yeah,
titles,
the
I
tag
think.
titles, right?
Yeah, and then I think naturally people just started to hate us. We didn't really have a big moment where it was like, oh, now they're bad guys, or oh, they're really beating up one of the fan favorites. They just kind of started to hate us, and that kind of unlocked so much for me as a performer because it was terrifying trying to connect with the audience as a babyface because I think that's terrifying for every I mean it's always terrifying for me as a babyface to try to get them to like you. Um, it's so much easier to get them to hate you. So
Right,
once I was able to learn from John and learn from Nick, I mean Nick's like has a background in, film and stage performing, and he's such
right.
a natural when it comes to connecting with an audience and
100%.
and eliciting an emotion from them. Being in the ring with him and being around John, uh, it just unlocked this personality of mine as the, horrible, no redeeming qualities, heel that I continue to be at the Monster Factory.
I'll be honest with you, when I think about factions, right? And again, I go back to the 80s when I started watching wrestling, and I think about, the early inception of the Four Horsemen.
Hmm.
And they always say that there's that blasting cap, and that blasting cap was Tully Blanchard, and that's who you are to me.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
Tully,
Wow.
because because I think about when because he was a heel's heel.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But he looked good, he dressed the part, looked the part. But when he got in that ring, it was all business. And even for you, got damn, I mean, your drop kick, you know what I mean? One of the best drop kicks in the biz.
Thanks.
So when I think about, what you all accomplished together, you know what I mean? When you got fans bringing signs, you know what I mean? That says a lot how you're able to get emotion out of people.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think John had a lot to do with that being our mouthpiece.
Hmm.
And then after we kind of evolved to the point where, he wasn't there as often, and then obviously we turn on him and he's out.
Hmm.
By that point, we had become comfortable enough really interacting with an audience. And not only that, as a heel, my job is to not only get the audience to hate me, but to get them to love whoever is about to beat me up
Right.
um, and making that baby face look good. Uh, and I think we do that so well. And I think the biggest compliment is, Dan kind of, when he's booking the shows, he knows
Hmm.
that we're going to have a good match, a good segment. We're going to tell a good story, and he can put us with anybody, and we're going to get them over. And I
Right.
think that's if I've heard a lot of people who have been in this business longer than I have and have done way more. If
Hmm.
you can get your opponent over and tell a good story and have a good segment or a good match, you're always going to have a job. And I know you're complimenting my drop kick, and that's very nice of you. But I'm not the most athletic guy. I'm not the most jack guy. But I can make you look good, and I can tell a good story, and I can get the people to hate me. So I hope that's my path to bigger and better things.
And it is. So, talk about the grind and hustle of the independent circuit. Obviously you worked AXW,
Mm.
1CW, GCW, and of course you've done plenty of appearances on WWE television. So, talk about the grind and the hustle of traveling, from show to show, making towns, as they say, also you want to get your reps in, but also make money at the same time. So talk about that for a second and how you're able to compartmentalize that mentally and saying, okay, this is the grind and this is the way you got to make it in this tough business.
It's so hard. I mean, I don't think I am able to compartmentalize it yet.
Hmm.
I think that, at this point, I'm trying to get in front of as many people as possible, as often as
Hmm.
possible. Um, and that is, I guess that's tough for some people to, kind of commit to. Um, I watch a lot of Matt Cardona's stuff, and of course, he was with WWE for so long, and he comes to the
Yeah.
Indies, and he's literally the indie god. That's his gimmick,
Yes, he
but
is.
he's the man, and he always says things, get out there as much as possible, get booked on as many shows as possible, get as many reps as possible. And that's going to pay dividends, whether it's financially or whether it's from the hype that you have or whoever you're in front of, the opportunities you might get because of that. That's what I believe. I'm trying to get in front of as many people as possible. Um, but it is tough and it is a grind. And uh, people who know a lot better than me are always saying, you're not going to make money when you start, or you're not going to make money until, X amount of years in, or until you do this. And that's kind of tough to reconcile sometimes.
Right.
But I hope the moment of, hey, this all being worth it financially, I hope that's coming up soon because I know I'm relatively new in pro wrestling, but I think it's about time where this all starts to become worth it financially.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, what makes you passionate and gets you motivated to do what you do?
I want to be the best. I know that's cheesy. I also, frankly, I want to make a lot of money. I want to provide for my future family. I want to have a nice life for myself. And I want to have
Mhm.
fun doing it. And I know that's pretty, having your cake and eating it too. You want to have fun and you want to do all that. Um, I think this is my best shot to do that. I think I can put the work in. I think I will be good enough to be able
Mhm.
to support myself and to support my family doing what I like to do. And I think I have the ability to make it to the next level and the next level after that, and to be one of the people that you're watching on TV 2 times a week. That's what motivates me.
What's the proudest moment of your career thus far?
Wow, that's a tough one. Um, you know, I can't really talk about the stuff that I've done for WWE. Not really supposed to, but I think the GCW show in Hammerstein Ballroom, that was just an incredible experience, and that the GCW roster, and just the lineup of that show to be among those people
Right.
was just such like that's where I want to be. That's those are the people that I want to share a locker room with. And it was the pre-show and it was a battle royal. But I can say that I wrestled in Hammerstein Ballroom. And I know a lot of people have been doing this for a long time who can't say that. Um, so that was really a proud moment. And the way that all came about was through Danny Cage. So not only was it performing in Hammerstein, it was knowing that the coach, my coach, believes in me enough to when he was asked, "Hey, do you have any guys for this? Do you have any guys that you trust for this?"
Right.
I
Right.
was at the top of his mind. So it was validation, from my coach, but it was also validation that I'm doing the right thing so far in pro wrestling. I just wrestled at Hammerstein Ballroom. That was a pretty proud moment and a really great night.
And I got to tell you, man, GCW has grown
Oh yeah.
into a monster. You know what I mean? They're going everywhere. They're touring everywhere. Indianapolis, Vegas, overseas. You know what I mean?
They're
They're
the
really,
top
really
independent. I mean, that's the peak of the independents right now. And
agreed.
they're working with WWE ID now on in Vegas for WrestleMania weekend. That's where you want to be.
100%. All right. So, of course, the topic of the day, the topic of the night, wherever you are right now, is this Saturday night's ECWA Super 8 tournament. This is a tournament that's been happening since 1997. And I mean, the who's who has been in this tournament. When you're talking about low key, when you're talking about Bryan Danielson, Austin Aries, um, Xavier Woods, Christopher Daniels. You know, the list goes on and on and on of the array of talent that's come through those doors, for the tournament. I've actually attended just as a fan. When ECWA was in Delaware, I used to go to all of their shows, but man, unbelievable. I think the first one I went to was when Papa Don, who was the ECWA champion at the time, won the tournament as the champion. So incredible, incredible night of wrestling. So the entrance so far, because I know we had a substitution fairly recently, but Clutch Rockwell, JD Luscious, Martar, Leo Sparrow, Heavyweight Sean Royal, the Emperor Bryce Saturn, the Cybertech Kid Trevor Terry, and of course, Wonderboy Brian Morris. Talk about what you had to do as far as being able to qualify for the Super 8.
Man, um, that's a good question. If I had the formula for what I did, I'd probably pass it along to everybody who's asked me that question. Um, I like to think it was just, work my ass off, get in front of the right people, have a little bit of buzz, enough buzz to where the folks at ECWA noticed. Um,
Mhm,
and then, just impress anybody who I can impress.
mhm.
I think that's what I did. I think that's why ECWA has given me the opportunity to be in this tournament. And you said the long list of names who've not just competed but won. Um, I said this on social media. I don't plan on just, competing and being happy about that. I plan on winning this Saturday, and I plan on joining that list.
So, have you scoped out any of these participants? Is there anyone in particular that you want to face in the first round and why?
Leo Sparrow, definitely.
Mm, talk about it.
Um, I've had I guess you could say, pleasure of being in the ring with Leo Sparrow a few times, and he's beat me up every time. I was in a steel cage with him at AXW as part of I think a 10-man elimination War Games-esque match, and he beat me up. And I was in the ring with him not too long ago in another AXW match, and he beat me up again. He won that match. I would love nothing more than to meet Leo Sparrow in the Super 8, possibly and preferably in the finals, and beat him in the middle of the ring and raise that trophy over his head and my head.
Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity right now. If all seven of your or of everyone that's in the tournament are sitting in front of you, I want you to tell them how you think this whole thing's going to play out and why you're the odds-on favorite.
Well, the reason I'm the favorite is exactly what I said on social media. I'm going to be honest with the whole audience and all of the participants. I know a lot of them are very happy to be in this tournament. I mean, they've said it themselves. Of course, I'm honored to be selected, and I'm happy to be a part of the long list of names that have competed. But I'm using this tournament as a stepping stone to propel my career to the next level. There's no mystery about my motivation here. I'm going to win 3 matches, and I'm going to be the 2025 Super 8 winner. And because of that, my career is going to take off. I have a very set mission, I have a very set goal, and it's very clear to not only me, but to the fans and to the 7 other competitors exactly what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it.
Well, you heard it first here, ladies and gentlemen, the D-Lew Podcast. Brian Morris is ready to rumble. Talk about beyond the Super 8 now. What's on the horizon for Wonderboy Brian Morris?
I'm really, really trying to get to the next level. I love independent wrestling. It's taught me so much. It's given me so many great experiences. It's allowed me to travel to so many places. Um, but I'm looking to get out of independent wrestling. I'm looking to get signed to a contract to wrestle on television. I think if anybody tells you any different, they are lying to you. That's everybody's goal. That should be everybody's goal. And that's certainly my goal. Um, Winning the Super 8 will do a lot to further that mission for me. Um, when I win on Saturday, a lot of people who don't know the name Wonderboy Brian Morris will know. And I think that'll go a long way into getting me in front of the right people, the people who can offer me a contract to be on national television on a weekly basis.
All right, I'm glad to hear that. Well, where can everybody find you on all social media platforms so they can keep up with Wonderboy Brian Morris?
At Brian G. Morris on all social media platforms. And Derek, if it's all right, I have a few dates coming up that I'd like to plug as well.
Absolutely. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
All right. March 22nd, ECWA Super 8. Marlborough, New Jersey, obviously the biggest show of the year for ECWA, and my ECWA debut. Can you imagine ECWA bringing a guy in for the first time and that guy winning their biggest tournament of the year? Ugh, that's going to be so sweet this Saturday, April 20th at the Monster Factory, a 2 p.m. show in Paulsboro, and April 26th in Elkton, Virginia, Mid-Atlantic Territory Wrestling. There's a few things in between there that I can't announce yet, but I will on social media.
Awesome. Well, Brian, like I said, I've known you a little over 5 years, and to see your growth, as a performer has been incredible to see as the ring announcer for the Monster Factory. And I definitely look forward to seeing you in the ring this Saturday.
Thank you very much, Derek, and thank you very much for having me on the D-Lew podcast. I've been a fan for so long, and it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Well, that does it for this week's edition of the D-Lew Podcast. Once again, I want to thank Brian for stopping by, to talk about his journey, what he's done in the past, what he's doing now, and what the future holds for his career in professional wrestling. And I will definitely see you all Saturday. By the way, tickets are still available if you can go to ecwawrestling.com. And like I said, don't wait till the 11th hour because you might get left out. You know, I say it before, I say it again. If you haven't done so already, subscribe. Subscribe to the D-Lew Podcast on all platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, my YouTube channel. If you could type in Derrick T. Lewis or The Real DT Lew, you'll be able to find my channel and subscribe and get all content on my channel, whether it's the podcast, my music, or even my acting stuff. Social media. You can find me on social media, find the show on social media rather, at the D-Lew Podcast. Also, my own personal social media is at the real DT Lew, with the exception of Facebook, which is Derrick T. Lewis official page. My merchandise is available, y'all. I have a pro wrestling tee store, pwt.derricklewis.com, and my other store that has all of the D-Lew Podcast merchandise and all the Siete merchandise at shop.derricklewis.com. Oh, and by the way, the shop.derricklewis.com store now has items brought to you and produced by Nike. So hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and sweatshirts. There's 3 items already on the store, so make sure you check it out because I guarantee you're not going to be disappointed. Well, I'm going to get out of here now, and as I always say, no matter what it is you do in life, always remember to make it count. See you next time.